Midwest Nightmares. 5 crimes that refuse to be forgotten. In the heart of America's heartland, where cornfields stretch to the horizon and neighbors still wave from their porches, some of the darkest crimes in our nation's history have unfolded. We're talking about murders so brutal, so meticulously planned, that decades later, they still send chills down the spines of investigators who worked these cases. Tonight, we're diving into 5 crimes from the Midwest that refuse to fade into obscurity. These aren't just cold cases gathering dust in some filing cabinet. These are nightmares that still haunt entire communities. Hey everyone, welcome back to Case Noir. I'm bringing you the first episode in our new series, Dark Secrets of the Midwest. And tonight we're covering crimes that prove evil doesn't need a big city backdrop to thrive. Number 5. The Grimes Sisters. On December 28, 1956, 2 teenage sisters left their home on Chicago's South Side to catch an Elvis Presley movie at the Brighton Theater. Barbara Grimes was 15. Patricia was just 13. They never came home. Their mother, Loretta Grimes, reported them missing that same night. This wasn't like her daughters. They were responsible kids, always home before curfew. But as the hours turned into days and days turned into weeks, hope began to crumble. The entire city mobilized. Volunteers combed through parks, abandoned buildings, and vacant lots. Elvis himself made a public plea on the radio, begging the girls to come home if they'd run away. More than 300,000 flyers were distributed across Chicago. Police followed up on over 2,000 tips, but Barbara and Patricia had seemingly vanished into thin air. Then on January 22, 1957, a construction worker spotted something along a guardrail on German Church Road, about 15 miles southwest of the city. The bodies of the Grimes sisters lay frozen in a roadside ditch, partially nude and arranged side by side. The medical examiner couldn't determine a definitive cause of death due to the condition of the remains, but investigators believed the girls had been held alive for some time after their disappearance before being murdered. They thought the case exploded. Police brought in suspect after suspect. A drifter named Benny Bedwell confessed, then recanted, claiming police had beaten the confession out of him. Another man, Edward Lee Bedwell, also confessed under similar circumstances. Both men were released due to lack of evidence and inconsistencies in their stories. To this day, nobody has been convicted of killing Barbara and Patricia Grimes. The case remains officially unsolved, leaving a mother who spent the rest of her life wondering what happened to her daughters during those missing 3 weeks. Loretta Grimes died in 1989, never getting the answers she desperately sought. Number 4. The Burger Chef Murders. Fast forward to November 17, 1978 in Speedway, Indiana, just outside Indianapolis. It was a Friday night and 4 young employees were closing up a Burger Chef restaurant. Jane Freight, the assistant manager, was 20. Daniel Davis and Mark Flemons were both 16. Ruth Shelton was just 15 years old. When the Saturday morning crew arrived to open the restaurant, they found the back door unlocked and the place eerily empty. The register had been emptied, but only about $581 was missing. Cleaning supplies were still out. Food sat half-prepared in the kitchen. It looked like the employees had been interrupted mid-closing routine. Police initially thought they were dealing with a robbery gone wrong. Maybe even that the employees had staged it themselves. That theory died 2 days later, when a hiker discovered all 4 bodies in a wooded area in Johnson County, about 20 miles from the restaurant. They'd been abducted, driven to this isolated location, and executed. The details were horrific. Jane Freet had been stabbed twice in the chest. Ruth Shelton had been shot in the chest. Both Daniel Davis and Mark Flemons had been shot, with Daniel taking a gunshot to the face. Investigators also found evidence suggesting that Jane and Ruth had been sexually assaulted before their murders. This case should have been as solvable. There were witnesses who reported seeing a suspicious man in the restaurant that night. Police developed multiple suspects over the years. In 1984, they thought they'd finally caught their break when they charged a convicted rapist named Donald Forrester, along with several accomplices. But the charges were eventually dropped due to insufficient evidence. More recently, in 2018, investigators announced they'd identified 2 potential suspects through new DNA analysis, but both men had already died before they could be questioned. The Burger Chef murders remain unsolved, and the families of these 4 young victims are still waiting for justice 46 years later. Number 3. The Lawson Family Christmas Massacre. Let's go back to Christmas Day 1929 in Germantown, North Carolina. Now, I know North Carolina isn't technically Midwest, but this case had connections throughout the region and became a cautionary tale told across America's heartland, so it deserves its place on this list. Charlie Lawson was a tobacco farmer, respected in his community, with a wife named Fanny and 8 children. On the morning of December 25th, Charlie took his family into town for a rare treat. He bought everyone new clothes and had a family portrait taken. They all looked happy in that photo, dressed in their Christmas best. Hours later, Charlie systematically murdered 7 members of his family. He started with his daughters, Carrie and Maybelle, who were playing outside the barn. He shot them both, then bludgeoned them with the butt of his shotgun to make sure they were dead. He then entered the house and killed Fanny and his 4 youngest children, Marie, James, Raymond, and baby Mary Lou. Reports indicate he carefully placed their bodies with their arms crossed heads, resting on pillows or stones. His eldest son, Arthur, who was 16, was out running errands and survived simply because he wasn't home. When Arthur returned and discovered the carnage, he reportedly ran through the woods screaming for help. Charlie fled into the nearby forest. Hours later, authorities found his body near the family property. He'd shot himself in the head, leaving behind no note, no explanation, nothing that could help anyone understand why he'd annihilated his own family on Christmas Day. Theories have circulated for decades. Some speculated financial troubles. Others suggested Charlie had been suffering from a head injury sustained months earlier when he was reportedly struck by a falling tree. The darkest theory, which gained traction years later, suggested there may have been incestuous abuse within the family, with some claiming that Charlie's eldest daughter, Marie, may have been pregnant with his child. Whatever the truth, Charlie Lawson took it to his grave, leaving behind one surviving son to carry the burden of that horrific Christmas morning for the rest of his life. Number 2, Jacob Wetterling. On October 22, 1989, in the small town of St. Joseph, Minnesota, 11-year-old Jacob Wetterling rode his bike to a video store with his brother Trevor and a friend named Aaron. They were doing what kids in safe small towns did back then, enjoying their freedom, completely unaware that evil was about to shatter their innocence forever. On their way home, a masked man emerged from a driveway brandishing a gun. He ordered the boys off their bikes and made them lie face down on the ground. After asking their ages, the man told Trevor and Aaron to run into the woods and not look back, threatening to shoot if they didn't comply. Then he abducted Jacob. The boys ran terrified and reported what happened. Law enforcement launched one of the largest searches in Minnesota history, Investigators followed thousands of leads. Volunteers scoured the countryside. But Jacob had vanished. For 27 years, Jacob's mother, Patty Wetterling, became a fierce advocate for missing children. She helped establish the Jacob Wetterling Resource Center and was instrumental in getting the Jacob Wetterling Act passed in 1994, which required states to create sex offender registries. She never stopped searching, never stopped hoping, even as years turned into decades. Then, in 2016, authorities finally got their break. A man named Danny Heinrich, who'd been a person of interest early in the investigation, was arrested on unrelated child pornography charges. During interrogation, investigators confronted him with new evidence, and Heinrich confessed to kidnapping and murdering Jacob. He led police to a field in Paynesville, Minnesota, where he'd buried Jacob's remains. Heinrich admitted he'd taken Jacob to a gravel pit, sexually assaulted him, and then shot him when the boy said he was going to tell the police what happened. Heinrich had then buried the body and returned to the site multiple times over the years to move and rebury the remains. As part of a plea deal, Heinrich received a 20-year federal sentence for child pornography, with prosecutors unable to charge him for Jacob's murder due to the statute of limitations. Many felt this was inadequate justice, but at least the Wetterling family finally had answers. They finally got to bring Jacob home. Number 1. The Villisca Axe Murders. If there's one unsolved crime from the Midwest that embodies pure, inexplicable horror, it's what happened in Villisca, Iowa, on the night of June 9th, 1912. The Moore family was well liked in their small community. Josiah Moore, his wife Sarah, and their 4 children had attended a church program that evening along with 2 young guests, the Stillinger sisters, who were staying overnight. 8 people went to sleep in that house that night. None of them woke up. Sometime between midnight and 5 in the morning, someone entered the Moore home. Moving through the darkness, this person systematically murdered all 8 people with an axe. The killer struck each victim in the head with such force that the ceilings were splattered with blood. The murders were brutal, methodical, and eerily silent. Nobody in the neighboring houses heard a thing. When a concerned neighbor discovered the bodies the next morning, she found a scene of unimaginable carnage. All the victims were still in their beds or appeared to have been placed back in their beds after being killed. Mirrors throughout the house had been covered with cloth. A bowl of bloody water sat in the kitchen, suggesting the killer had washed up before leaving. The investigation was compromised from the start. Curious townspeople trampled through the crime scene before police could properly process it. Potential evidence was contaminated or destroyed. Dozens of people were investigated. Several were even tried for the murders, but nobody was ever convicted. One theory centered on a traveling preacher named George Kelly, who'd been in Villisca the night of the murders. Kelly confessed multiple times, but he was known to have mental health issues, and his confessions were inconsistent. He was tried twice, with both trials ending in hung juries, and was eventually released. Another suspect was Iowa State Senator Frank Jones, who'd had a business dispute with Josiah Moore. Some investigators believe Jones may have hired a hitman named William Mansfield to kill the Moore family. Mansfield was investigated for similar axe murders in other states, but nothing concrete ever tied him to Villisca. More than a century later, the Villisca Axe Murder House still stands. It's been turned into a museum and reportedly one of the most haunted locations in America. Though whether you believe in ghosts or not, what happened there is terrifying enough on its own. 8 people including 6 children, were slaughtered in their sleep, and their killer walked free. These 5 cases represent just a fraction of the dark secrets buried in America's heartland. They remind us that evil doesn't discriminate by geography, and that behind the picture-perfect facade of small-town America, some mysteries may never be solved. What do you think happened in these cases? Do you believe we'll ever see justice for these victims? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see more episodes from Dark Secrets of the Midwest, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. Trust me, we're just getting started. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.